We have to.
Alright,
Alrighty, I believe we're ready to begin our deliberations. Ms. Chris, did you want to walk us through, how we're going to engage the public in any other?
yes. Let me do that.
Yes.
Welcome to our work session, everyone. It's been a while since we've had one of these, but we have a number scheduled to come up and, we've got a lot of really good topics to jump into over the next couple of months. So, we'll definitely keep busy with that. For this work session, it's been advertised such that we are gonna take, comments from the public in written format. So if we have anyone interested, who is viewing the meeting, and would like to submit comments, those can be forwarded to my email, CreasyM@charlottesville.gov. We don't have any public in the room quite yet, but if they were, we would allow them the opportunity to fill something out here if they would like to. But we'll make sure that folks are able to provide us with written comments as they need, but we're not gonna have a verbal public comments session in this meeting. Good, turn it back up.
Oh, Betty, I think the way, the NDS team wants us to do this is just, this is the document, this is the main document that we're gonna be talking about, that backup documentation that I would do. We're about to come to look at words like SITUS, because I've never heard that word before. But you don't want us to, serious means venue of education, I think. Anyway, we're not gonna explain this part, believe me, we're really explaining this document here. And the comments added by Rory, and I believe, one comment that's worthy of, at least consideration, came in from Mr. Emery, so. I'm gonna,
So our committee created the statements that we've got noted here. I added in the code references. And then made sure you had those in your package just in case you needed them. Sorry that you spent so much time with them, but you know, you learned some new stuff, so it's a good
learn
thing.
your words.
And this is in a draft, very draft format, and after you guys have the opportunity to work through it, we can polish it up from there. But
So if it's all with you guys, I'd like to talk to all of you guys, to have you guys lead us on the conversation,
Oh.
since you guys wrote the document.
Okay, sure.
that's all right.
We started,
Like that to you guys.
we started just by looking at what council has done the previous year. Didn't want to reinvent the wheel. Two of those from the previous year's packet we thought were especially present and had not been acted on to our knowledge. Which is about tenants' rights, which is straight out of our housing plan. And about sales tax increase for public school facilities, something we talked about a lot in the capital projects plan. So I think we have pretty good consensus on those, and the council supports those.
So, question about the school one. Like, we know that's going in council's packet no matter what. It's not exactly our territory, except that we review the CIP. Do we need it in there? If they're gonna do it anyway, we
Want to take it
keep our
out?
memo focused on things that we want them to think about they may not have already.
Why not? I mean, it's not
Yeah,
even,
they
it's
don't
not
like
even
it.
ink and paper, it's just.
They can put it in one.
I mean, yeah, well, but they're not, they already have it in their packet, so I guess it doesn't matter.
I had, I don't know, if I don't want to take over because it's your meeting, but. Questions about, first one, just the bullet number 1. We're talking about the affirmative defense to non-payments. Does that mean that just simply means that they can withhold their rent if things aren't being fixed properly, right? And if it does, doesn't it already exist?
Yeah, I thought that was a thing already.
I don't know. I mean, that in theory it does, but then when legal aid gets, still has to be asked to reinforce. That's a good question.
My understanding is contractual, there's no state
Interesting.
involvement.
Okay. The other question I've got is, what does it mean to waive their appeal bond? What does it mean to waive your appeal bond? Second bullet, A. Allow an indigent tenants to.
If there's a dispute and if you have to bond over what's owed, if there's a decision that's made. You have to bond over when you're appealing, you have to bond the amount.
The applicant or the
tenant.
has to bond over the amount.
The amount,
So,
right.
and you guys are wanting to waive that until the dispute is resolved.
Correct.
And the fourth bullet, this is rent control, right? You guys are advocating rent control.
Yes. Yeah, and we are aware that an invasion by flying monkeys might be more likely than getting that through the current legislature, but what the heck?
Well, are there any other localities in Virginia that have rent control? I know they got in DC, Washington DC has a strong rent control ordinance, but.
None.
Yeah, but none. The sales tax. Do you guys have a revenue objective there? On the B now, B.
It's like a couple million a year or something. I think we have that somewhere. I mean, not us. but like-
Once that, oh, yeah, once the sales tax number, I was thinking about.
This
Maybe
will
the same
be,
with our current local
this will be on
option,
top of the
right?
map, 3% we're paying now, right?
Yep.
Let's go make you guys.
Which one?
Sales tax, 1% increase.
Well, it's gonna be a referendum anyway, so
Yeah.
public doesn't like it, they can vote against it.
And again, this is you guys can run the meeting, I'm just asking questions because you guys are doing. Please, yeah, number 2 on the second page.
Into new business, well, sort of newish business.
Oh, I'm sorry, we haven't, yeah, I'll wait, please.
So the next two are efforts that we have worked for in Richmond in the past, but not successful.
Next
So we can at least,
Which one?
number 2 and number 3.
Okay, yeah, that's, yeah.
Number 2 was some legislation from 2 years ago, allowing just Charlottesville to change how we do taxation. The idea 2 years ago was for housing stuff. Now with the transportation or transit partnership, transit becomes an interesting possibility as well. So we can hit our transit goals and our housing goals, which is great.
Can you explain what exactly this is?
It's
What it is?
it's setting different tax rates for land and improvements.
Yes.
Okay. And how does
Different tax rates for land and improvements, so, okay,
To
one rate for
value
the
them.
land, one rate,
Yeah.
rate for the infrastructure that you built up the land. Okay,
interesting?
thank you.
So 5 or 6 localities
other
that currently have
localities
this,
have
that,
Yes.
so none of them use it, so.
Richmond,
Couple
Everyone
of places
else.
in Northern Virginia.
Pocosin.
What is the,
They sought an authorization to, they don't use it.
Correct.
I think they've had it
Each
forever.
one went through the same process.
what would we, how would we do that? Like, what would we value?
Typically,
That's
you would
right,
have a
well,
lower
that's
tax on
right.
improvements to incentivize not sitting on vacant land.
Okay.
The extreme version is the land value tax where you don't tax improvements at all,
Mhm.
only tax the value of land.
Okay, okay, that makes sense.
Henry George.
That was
style.
my question. That answers that. I was trying to get at the goal of it.
Yeah.
Obviously can't speak English tonight, so I don't know what's wrong with me.
So that's the carrot is try to advance, like fully develop your lot. Just try to.
And we have options we can do around that. Right now, we can do tax abatements to kind of get at that, but it's clunky.
So this, sorry, just to be clear, so this is just undeveloped land, not separating, there's 100-year-old home that hasn't been touched in years from
No, you can,
their land
if you're calling the land, you can value the land and you can value the improvements
separately.
separately.
So they're already
Different rates.
assessed, if you look at GIS, there's already a value for improvements, a value for land. And this would be, if you have you have land and improvements. The land would be taxed at one rate, the improvements at a different rate.
Okay,
There was an assessment done of this, of a census block a few years ago that found, I think, I forget, this is just off the top of my head, but I think it was a 10% discount for residences on average. But businesses would pay quite a bit more just because of the giant parking lots.
so we can't currently do that?
Not legal in Virginia, unless we get,
Unless you're one of the 6 localities, we just wanted to.
I heard you say it, but I just like,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird, there's, you can't do that.
So we can't, we're talking about being able to differentiate the tax rate applied to each of those.
Right.
So we can value them separately, which we do, but then we combine that value and provide one tax rate against that value. Right, what are we at, $1 or something?
So,
Wait,
why does that, that work, it just work better? Why does what you
Right,
propose
sure.
work better than what we can do?
it gives tax break to residences, which is, in my view, a fundamental good. That's just great. It
Well-
raises holding costs.
So, for example, if you had a land bank or a land trust,
Right, yeah.
whatever, and you got land that's taxed, the tax is paid by Habitat, and the house sitting on top of the house, well, the land would be paid by the owner.
Possibly.
Yeah, and Habitat is tax exempt.
Yes.
Okay,
I think, well, you could also. Yeah, I mean, there are lots of ways, there are lots of schemes that you can bring into play about it. You can, as they say, encourage the development, but also if you've got very high density. You're gonna have these lots with itty bitty pieces, scraps of land. condominiums for that matter too, you can make that differential, even though it's much less of a difference, you just take a fraction, actually, common elements.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Number three, actually two similar bills went to the governor's desk last session. We are asking for it again, and adding more. Our language is a 20% tree canopy, which is the current maximum we're permitted to request. And then giving us additional powers in floodplains and riparian areas.
So how does this differ from what Bill wants to do? Bill,
This is part of what he's talking about.
Bill wants to provide more of an incentive by letting you plant trees to lower your
I called
stormwater.
it a canopy instead of,
Yeah.
credit instead of
I
credit.
like that idea. I like this idea.
Because that one is an incentive and this one's a mandate.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like I mean, imagine, a downtown lot, right? We have the trees in the public right of way. Are you saying that we would now have to reserve 20% of land on a downtown lot to not be built on?
It allows up to 20%.
Well, it allows us to require.
Yeah, so that would be us making that requirement.
Us and every other locality in the state.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that would be a very complicated conversation. 10% is a struggle for some of our applicants. So I'm sure that they would have some things to say as part of that discussion.
Yeah.
That's just,
And the,
Throwing it out
and the
there.
carve out alternatives, if you're not actually providing it, that sort of tree bank option. I guess that's nice for the state, it doesn't really help the city much, because it all gets shuttled, this banking of trees that you're allowed to do. Where, and it goes to, what is the something agricultural conservation fund for the state?
Oh, like
You get
nutrient
payment in
credits.
lieu, and then then you can.
Under our ordinance, we have a payment in lieu.
No, it's the state it's the underlying law about coverage in the present statute.
That all I'm aware of is the state has enabling legislation that says municipality can mandate up to 10% tree canopy coverage on commercial lots, and up to 20% on residential, and I think.
Under 10 units an acre, and then there's lowest limits for more landscape.
Right, good.
But the relevant, right, so, but in the present statute, section E, the replacement of trees during the development process has this reasonable exceptions. What I'm saying is that instead of, if we're trying to be in an incentivized way, we've got this state apparatus that handles they've got a payment in lieu sort of option here. And
That's
credits,
Already in our ordinance.
it's in the state statute now. Okay,
no.
152961.3 that was passed out. Section E.
So one could amend the request in terms of changes to the legislation and say. So we have the reasonable exceptions in ours about farmland and wetlands and. Unreasonable hardship.
Right. And
And
that,
I don't remember ever having the tree canopy bank option. We don't.
well, we
never
don't,
adopted that.
yeah, we don't, but if
This
you,
shall provide for,
yeah.
Yeah,
not may provide for.
yeah.
And then it all and then if you're, and then there's this offset that's essentially credit that's equal to what the cost would have been to do it, and that goes to this National Resources Commitment Fund.
Do we have?
And-
that? I mean, this does actually say that the bank should be within the locality and located as feasible, closely as feasible to where the development project is
Right.
situated. If no bank within the locality,
And,
unmet portion may be met by payment to the state treasury.
yeah, and what sort of gives me pause there is that's a state apparatus that we're asked to change. If we were to change it, for example, to say, yeah, unmet, you can make a payment in lieu to the city, but you can't.
Yeah.
Go to this national. So it could get sticky, and who knows what, what second order interests are involved in that whole process there.
Yeah, I mean, I get that we're not creating the ordinance now, it's only authorization, but to throw out a random number like 20% without looking at, oh yeah, without looking at site plans and saying, well, where's the site plan wrong? Where would I put extra tree canopy? Seems, I don't know.
So how would you like it to read?
Skip free.
Read.
Skip it.
Skip it. You mean take it out?
That's my personal opinion.
Can't go either way, but. I want to take it out, but I'm willing to compromise.
It's all right.
So there's something, there's a hyper between what you guys are trying to accomplish. What you would, but the approach you guys want to take and the approach Bill wants to take.
Okay,
I like
so-
Bill's thing.
We can do both.
So,
Well, yes, that was my preference.
so what, and I'll just jump in because it's the time we're talking about Bill. I talked with Donald Sharman, who is our stormwater utility manager. He's been here for a few months. I haven't met him in person, but I've talked to him. He's a great guy. About and showed him Bill's email, and then we talked a little bit yesterday, and he wasn't aware of any sort of data at that point in time. And then he got back with me this morning and said that there potentially was some work being done to try and come up with a way to quantify tree canopy as a BMP under the stormwater code. So apparently there's stuff out there being worked on. It's not fully baked.
Would that be allowed under the current statute?
Well, if
We call it a
it's
BMP.
categorized as a BMP, then it already fits. So basically the general point is that if, once it gets to the point where the math and the standards are there, it already has a box to go in.
Okay.
So, and his team seemed very excited about it, just, it just has to come to fruition in a way that they can quantify it, so they meet all the regulations.
So you don't need we don't need state action to do this. If it's incorporated into as an accepted best management practice, BMP, under the stormwater regulations, then it goes.
You're talking about Bill's.
Yes.
Okay, so we can just,
Do it.
so we can take that off the table for tonight.
Correct. We don't need to ask the state for anything, because once the industry gets to the point where they have what they can quantify, we can move forward with that, and they're very excited for that opportunity. So that's always good too.
All right, cool. So back to free and 20% versus 10% mandate.
I have one tweak thought, which is that we could remove the first section about 20% and just ask for additional powers in floodplains and riparian corridors, which is my personal priority.
I like that, sure.
Let's do that.
But don't we have broad authority now to establish riparian buffers? I mean, the county has them. We were talking about making them.
We do have authority to create riparian buffers. I would say that there's been some dispute around the nature of that authority, but the county and both us and the county have done it.
All right, we just only have for the Urbana and one creek,
Three water bodies,
Moore's and Meadow Creek.
yes. And that is specifically about establishing riparian buffers or maintaining.
But not about requiring canopy within them, is that? I mean, you can't disturb them, so it's just kind of whatever's there, I guess.
You can also, I hesitate to say definitively what you can do or can't do. You can preserve them. I'm not sure what it says about proactively restoring them. What if we took the amendment that Bob just suggested, we would definitively be able to essentially restore riparian area, right? Because you'd be on a redevelopment site, you'd be requiring new tree canopy within the riparian area.
So if 20% goes from the first half, you have to then add language saying a greater than 20% flood.
I have a language suggestion on that. Strike in quotes, the requirement of 20% tree canopy for all uses and I think with that change, it flows properly.
Would you read it?
To permit the
Be greater.
A greater percent in floodplain, so do you have to qualify what's greater, or just keep it ambiguous, the greater percent?
Oh, you're right. Which needs to be a greater percent
Than
of tree canopy.
With the requirement of a greater person.
Yeah, it is my working context, you're right. Yeah.
But I'm just to follow on, there is some gray into whether the authority to create buffers comes from the Chesapeake Bay Act, which is mandated east of 95 in Tidewater, and then permissive in other parts of the state. It is, what is kind of gray is whether the localities west of 95 have the ability to establish kind of any old buffer program, or whether they have to join the entire Chesapeake Bay program in order to establish.
This
buffers.
makes me nervous on the grounds that if this is one of, I mean, I could be 100% wrong about this, but I would think that there are development interests that would push back against this.
Yes.
If we go down to Richmond and get the pushback against this, we could muddy our own riparian buffer authority and have people take a look at that and have that be the focus of something. Oh, no, this really is a gray area. And, I mean, I don't know what the number is correct for the number of lawsuits we should be fielding, but, I mean, I think we
You know it
probably
when you
have
see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, well, yeah, like Potter Stewart, I think I know it when I see it, and this might have unintended consequences if we start blundering around with this without having our back straight. I don't know what the rest of you think, I just can see someone trying to drive a wedge right into that. I mean, if we go down to Richmond and it crashes and burns, then the argument is, oh, you affirmatively don't have the authority to do this. Oh, what about the Chesapeake? Yeah, that's great as heck. Let's have a lawsuit. Good. It may,
So what would you like to do with this?
which, I mean, I want a legal opinion is what I want before I,
Well, I mean,
Items that would go to this would go forward to the legislative committee, which has a lawyer, I'm assuming, it has in the past.
Yeah,
And
we know
so-
what it is, it's counselors, okay.
One of those is a lawyer, but what about our lawyer?
Or-
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, sorry. I wasn't connecting to it.
I thought you were referring to the members of the committee.
Yeah.
Typically, the city attorney's office is also
Would be
advised on the legislative.
I think that gets flagged as, do we step in something accidentally here?
I think
I
it's
mean,
worth
we
making
can say,
that point when we pass it on.
Yeah, pass it on, yeah.
But I agree.
But if you just change the language to just say to replacement of trees during development process and look at, you're just referencing the existing, I guess, law. Could you say just to permit a greater than 20% tree canopy in floodplains and riparian? I mean, that just seems like you're trying to restore natural landscape that
Yeah.
already exists. You're not trying to make new riparian buffers or new.
Yeah, I guess my point is that we're opening up a political can of worms, because you go down to Richmond, you advocate for this, you're gonna have pushback from that on developer side. And if you're in that and it fails, it affirmatively fails.
I'm just curious, Ed, you're not trying to establish new floodplains or riparian areas. These are already
Right,
currently established ones. You're just trying to get authority that right now, if you look at the law, you can't advocate for more than 20% tree
Right.
canopy in areas that may already be 70-80% tree canopy, and we're trying to push it further.
right, but my concern is that it goes down there and it fails. Yeah, we don't get it.
Mhm.
But in the process of that, we've got an affirmative, we got a conversation in the legislature about it, you've failed, it fails, right?
Yeah.
And now you've got, well, the state has spoken, in essence,
Mhm.
that you can't do this, and now we're relying entirely on our fuzzy permissive Chesapeake Bay Act authority, which no one has been paying terrible attention to right now, but they might in that circumstance, because now we don't have, I just feel like we might I want a lawyer to give me the,
Yes.
yeah,
I agree.
yeah, I just,
I mean, I think we send this on to them,
Yeah.
after we're expected with the caveat that we're worried about.
that,
Yeah.
I think so.
I have some updated language. To permit the requirement of a greater than 20% tree canopy in floodplains and riparian areas, period.
Yes,
You said it again to Ms. Creasy.
To permit the requirement of a greater than 20% tree canopy in floodplains and riparian areas.
You go that way.
yeah, with the danger Will Robinson, but no.
Yeah.
It just seems weird that you would sort of be legally limited to an arbitrary 20% in a natural landscape. It just seems like a.
Yeah.
A shortcoming of the existing law.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I want it, I'm just nervous about failing, I just,
Yeah, it's fair.
I think number 4 is self-explanatory, not our problem.
These next two are based on current legislation that the State Housing Commission is looking at. Both of these were considered last session and got funded to the committee for review. Both of them are probably going to be watered down when they come out, but they will be something along these lines. Accessory dwelling units and vacant housing.
I'm gonna be an idiot. What does it mean? But I mean. We can already do accessory dwelling units, so it's
This
statewide.
is statewide. We're just taking pressure off our own valve.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we support it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so we're like. Saying everyone else needs to
Yes.
accept that,
Yeah,
okay.
Yes, do it our way,
Yeah.
yes.
Got it.
Cool.
That is
For the second one,
Fine.
so if we're talking about the faith and housing bill,
Yes, it
expanded state resources sounds like funding
Correct,
does.
rather than permitting
right,
religious organizations to provide housing.
correct.
Do
We're
we
being silent.
not want to directly support that?
Correct.
I'm open to a conversation.
I mean, I would say we support the faith and housing bill. We have had success in religious organizations in Charlottesville providing housing on their excess property.
Can you share what the faith in?
Yeah, it has essentially expanded rights for religious organizations and I think educational organizations do have.
It exempts them from zoning or what?
I think it sort of exempts them, but not like blanket exemptions. I think it, as previously written, it like specifies a density cap. That's higher, a minimum density cap.
That's my recollection. I'm forgetting the details. There's a different version that I wrote. The subcommittee is talking about it, but it's looking bad. VACO and VML are going hard against it. As they do. The counties and the cities are lobbying against allowing
Virginia Municipal.
affordable housing on church land.
Who is?
The Virginia
Municipal.
Association of Counties, VACO, and VML, Virginia Municipal League, which represents cities, maybe cities and towns.
Because they don't want to give up any authority to restrict things in municipal
Yeah, and
boundaries.
I'm generally very, very weary of making any noise about pushing any dollars towards religious, any tax dollars towards any sort of religious outfit, and I think that I think that I kind of agree with the municipal league on that ground. Why would we give up zoning and control when we have this new permissive code that lets them do a lot? What's the gain?
Well, we want other localities to also let them build affordable housing,
Yeah. I
just
support
as we've
saying-
allowed it through,
Yeah,
especially.
I,
PUDs.
I'm very leery of I mean, we're saying state resources, by which we mean money. If you want to talk about something that's not money.
Yeah, I mean, I think state resources is a bit odd here in that they can apply through the normal LIHTC process if they want funding. And I don't know that we should specifically direct resources towards this versus other affordable housing.
Support expanded
Resources.
permitting authority.
Yeah.
Not permitting authority, that's not the right word.
State preemption permitting authority for,
Yeah,
maybe not those.
For
words,
land
the other
holding
one.
nonprofit organizations to provide, not religious, to land holding nonprofit organizations. So that we're not singling out religious organizations.
Does this create like a development loophole where you could be a private developer who forms a nonprofit, acquires land, and then
Well, it's still to be affordable housing, so.
So, and if they step out of line, then, you know, you can stick the IRS on them.
Actually, that's an interesting point. That means that we'd actually be creating a pathway where an organization like PHA could create, as we're talking about it right now, create some form of exemption or greater development of capacity. Would apply then to an organization like PHA where they acquire land, would apply to religious organizations and nonprofit educational organizations, so schools, for example, so like a St. Anne's Belfield could build teacher housing, right? There's schools in California that are building teacher housing because they can't afford to live in the communities where the schools are.
So again,
Is that supposed to be a negative?
Yes.
Oh.
Statement.
But teachers can't afford to live in the communities.
That is.
No, like, and then we're allowing them to build it. Was that
That's a positive.
bad? Oh, that's positive, okay. Well, VML would, Jamaica wouldn't say that. It's
I mean,
negative.
it could be a positive, but it could also tax, create issues with the tax system if you have huge volumes of that occurring. I don't know.
Affordable housing.
I mean, they're not broadly exempt from real estate taxes, right? Like PHA has to accept that we give them exemptions. Habitat specifically is exempt by
Religious
name,
institutions
right?
do.
so it's the idea that,
in statute.
so a nonprofit currently could develop their land, they would just have to go through the regulatory zoning process, which we feel is a great product of, output that there's not much limitations to redeveloping, but this would be letting them be, to me, it sort of acknowledges that maybe the zoning's not that good if you can find a loophole around it.
The point is
That's
expanding is statewide.
Yeah.
Outside of Charlottesville.
Yeah, which other places don't have this.
Right, so if you take like, most churches are in relatively single family areas and there's some single family like this surrounding
So they
homes.
can't do much there. Yeah, right.
no, but it'd be really. Yeah, well, I guess again, it's resources versus, I'm not sure what we would be permitting and exempting. We were talking about money. That was our.
That was the conversation, but for that.
Yeah.
I guess.
So the meat of the bill from last session is if residential uses aren't permitted on that church's land, 40 units per acre and a height of 1 story or 15 feet above the otherwise maximum height would apply. If the locality allows for greater residential density or building heights on that parcel or an adjoining parcel, the greater shall apply. So basically saying if you've zoned your churches for no residential, they can build 40 units an acre and get that height, that 1-story height bonus. But I think someone said the more general phrasing there of just we support allowing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some of this is the discussion with the council subcommittee, the legislative committee, and our legislators on what's within the realm of the possible, the probable, and the fantastical.
Feels a little weird to be telling other municipalities what they should do. You know,
Well,
almost
if
like
they
it's
had home
asking
rule, we
for,
wouldn't be doing this.
but it's like asking for the state to create a rule for the whole state, which could then maybe negatively impact our own zoning.
But you guys just supported that for ADUs.
Well, no, I'm still a little leery about that one as well, just for the same reason. It just feels weird to be telling the rest of the state you need to do something just because we do it.
Well,
I mean, I'm not gonna nix it,
Yeah.
because obviously.
Well, we're saying you guys should
It's
do
what
it
we're
because
trying
it's the
to
right
do.
thing to do, which is
Yeah.
why we did it, not
But
because Charlottesville did it, you have to do it, but
Yeah, just
because it should be allowed.
I think it's laying down a marker. I mean, I don't think again, how ugly did that die last year? The ADUs everywhere. 'Cause
It got referred to the housing commission, it didn't totally die.
Yeah.
From what I hear, it's gonna come back this next year, probably in the form of encouraging localities to adopt the policy. And the ADU bill is gonna come back from the housing commission as as every
Suggesting.
locality should adopt some sort of policy on ADUs.
That shall consider.
It takes a while for things to happen. You introduce it again, kind of gets in, you know, that's how pretty much everything gets through there.
Yeah,
Shall we move on to the rest for now?
Well, but where do we land on 5? Where much do we agree to?
I think we've got no consensus on anything.
so how about something like,
I think.
we support state policies to permit religious and educational organizations to provide affordable housing.
Land holding nonprofits.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's good enough, it's big enough, yeah, let's go with that.
What was the first bit?
We support, oh, I don't know.
Said state
That was,
supported.
that was 45 seconds ago. What do you want from us?
Right now, we've got expanded state resources. What
We-
changed you really?
Well, resources is again, sounds like money,
Well, we support that
we
too.
support. What I say, state,
Actually, I think
Affordable, what is
I
it?
think a couple of later bullet points might inform how we.
statewide permitting,
that language.
statewide permit, for statewide, we support
Policy.
statewide permitting for land holding nonprofit organizations.
What
providing
about
affordable
state,
housing.
statewide opportunities?
Or
Permitting
organizations.
something
Oh,
like
like
that. That's what we.
Policy was the word used, but we support state
Right,
policy
policies.
Mhm.
that allows.
To allow landholding nonprofit organizations.
You know, to facilitate, yeah, no, to facilitate landholding in in creating.
No.
To facilitate ease forward.
Yeah, facilitate is good, I think. We support. Alright, what was it?
Support state.
Allows.
The word policies was the word
State
used.
policies
Statewide.
to facilitate. Landholding nonprofit
The
organizations
development of affordable housing.
Okay.
and creating affordable. housing. People don't like to develop.
Yeah,
People
that's
like creating affordable housing.
So if we've got that one, do we have that one?
I think we all.
Yeah.
Well,
Alright.
We just say including maybe.
Well, that- I was about to say, do we combine or broaden this and say we broadly support changes to state policy or laws that encourage the development of additional affordable housing and dwelling units broadly, such as ADU laws
Yeah.
or
Policies that would.
Yeah, that's-
Getting that into one bullet
Nonprofits.
would be.
get it into one bullet and it,
Yeah.
Takes the edge off each
But
one.
these,
yeah.
I guess I just wanted to clarify, so some of these have specific bills
Mhm.
attached, so that was easier to be like, oh, okay, we're
Yeah.
supporting that.
Which is true for 4 and 5. Those are
Yeah.
specific.
And the rest are kind of recommendations. So that's, I guess that's why I was wondering, do we just say affordable housing, A, B, C, D? Tree canopy, or, I don't know, it just seems like. I don't know if there's a prioritization or, we're not tying it to any particular bill that may have come before. So just like, hey, these are the things
But
we think are great. I mean, I guess it just seems like it's very vague in terms of not trying to pass bills or.
well, yeah, I think that's part of the next step with the
Okay,
legislative
okay.
subcommittee too, and to figure out what one puts weight behind, what one says is kind of wishful thinking, and ones that you put in anyway, make the sign on the cross and hope it happens. But I think that's about, I think that's about
So
getting our state
where are
legislature.
we? What do we have?
James is suggesting that condense them into one makes sense, because then it's more about a collective support for different strategies to tackle
Can
affordable
we
housing.
get maybe one more readout to make sure we all agree with what those Creasy things we said?
Well, so I had the one version for number 5, and then I did not catch half the things James said, so I noted it.
It was brilliant.
So I anyway, so I noted the time on the tape to go back and combine.
Good job.
You want to like circulate corrected
Just
language
let you
in a
push
few days, so we can all say that should be what we said.
Definitely.
Maybe we could
Because he
consider
probably could
saying
repeat it.
we support the faith and housing for the
We might
common.
write it differently this time. So their combination of those things will
I'm
come
I'm
together.
adopting a new policy, anyone else can adopt it if they like, write down what you're gonna say first and then read it out loud.
Oh,
It helps, or not, but we have a video, so.
Okay. Next, is about stuff that's come up mostly recently. First up is, all about mobile home parks.
Number 6.
Number 6, we support an expanded timeline and resources to purchase mobile home parks, so it's not such a struggle. Supporting purchase documentation should be required to be shared with tenants as they become available. We likewise recommend increasing compensation for tenants at purchase and linking that rate to inflation.
and I think what will clarify that a lot is citing the current statute, which essentially with a mobile home park of a certain size, the tenants must be informed and then they have a 60-day clock to buy the place. And what we're saying, which is what just happened at Carlton, and by, with damage to everyone's cardiovascular and gastrointestinal tracts and senior management, both in the city and in the major nonprofits, they managed to scrape together a Hail Mary maneuver in 59
That's
days.
pretty good. But again, what does, recommend increasing compensation?
So in the law, you get,
You
they,
get $5,000, actually doubled from last year,
Correct.
to relocate your mobile home
Ah,
if they sell the place and kick you out.
got it.
and we say just find a real number and then link it to some sort of inflation.
And it's also 180 days, I believe, after they kick you out. Like 60 days to make an offer, but 180 days
Yeah.
notice, which we could say could be longer.
But after 60 days, it's a done deal, so you just have time to relocate, but there's no changing it.
But one of the.
Yeah, I mean, even 60 days is just to make an offer,
Okay.
like a counter offer. They don't have to accept the offer. In this case, they did, but.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is that it's a black hole. What is other than the top line number, you don't know anything. So where's the purchase contract? You wanna redact the names on it, that's fine, but let's see because there are offers and there are offers and the top line price ain't always the driver.
Yeah. I mean,
What's the offer?
totally crazy. I just said that we should. Yeah, have to publish the.
I mean, if you wanna redact the people and the organizations, that's fine, but
There wasn't an offer.
Anything more on 6?
Do we know?
It's good.
Okay. Number 7,
We could
school
make up
streets.
all kinds of confusion.
This is,
What is a state school street?
so this is, this is big in Europe and Canada, but there is no national program in this country about school streets.
What is a school street?
Is a street that is next to a school
Okay.
that is closed during drop off and pickup
Interesting.
Why do we need a state program for that?
to support it. We could do it just in Charlottesville, but it would be a whole lot easier. if we
And
did
you
it.
can't have it because of safety issues.
Yes.
I get
It came up over and over in the zoning conversation too, and in Copland.
it.
Actually, in Virginia, it's something of a state issue because the streets are all state roads.
Yep.
Yep.
For us, it's less of an issue. Now, we might be in better footing arguing for this if we had done it here first.
I think it's reasonable to ask.
Possibly. Well, I mean, calculate this back. Well, it's not too late to. do it.
8, we recommend the creation of a committee to study deed restrictions and covenants to ensure compliance with law, equity, and affordable housing goals. We recommend studying regularization of terms for consistency. So this also came out of the comp plan and zoning conversations. When we discovered, oh wow, there's so many racial covenants in Charlottesville. And a lot of property owners don't know about them. The terms are very unclear. A lot of the demands are increasingly unreasonable. Stuff has changed over the last 100 years. Must mention the racial elements, which are
And a lot of the stuff that's in there isn't racial, is in fact racial.
right. The state could look at this issue.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because I mean, frankly, you just need daddy to come in and start making some arbitrary rules about how to deal with the old stuff. Just like, here are the rules.
Clean it up.
Yeah,
Number 9, we recommend adjusting the state building code to treat 6 units and below as residential code. The same as single family and duplex, and continue to treat buildings with 7 units and above as commercial, similar to the Memphis, Tennessee example.
And this relates to the email that you sent at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
What are the goals from the residential code that we are specifically trying to get around?
Affordable.
Well, and that's, no, so like
What's the scope?
sprinklers or
Yes.
requiring a design professional to do drawings.
That was
Or
one
fire
for the Virginia
ratings.
example.
Yes,
Okay,
So those, all three of those was in the Tennessee example that you shared.
yes.
no, the thing about the Tennessee one is I went on the city's website and I could find no, like, I found the ordinance that they passed in 2021. But you go on their planning website and it specifically says, actually a screenshot of it. The construction of new 1 and 2 family dwellings or townhouses is a new single family home. This does not include accessory structures. For multifamily structures, please apply for a commercial permit.
Interesting.
So I don't know if they undid that at some point.
Or redefine what they meant by multifamily somewhere.
It is possible. They do have a zoning definition for a large house, which I guess is up to their 6 units or whatever.
Maybe that isn't what multifamily, which is confusing because there are different definitions of multifamily depending on where you are and who you're talking to.
And I think, so I don't think it's actually in the building code that says, whether something is permitted under a residential code or the commercial code. I think it's under the state, like there's just a state code. I think.
Well, so the state adopts the uniform state
Yes.
building code out of
No,
the
I
IRC
understand
and the IBC, right?
The IBC, I don't
Different
think,
states run things differently
Yeah.
too. In Virginia, our building code official is enforcing the state building code, because we have no local building code. Virginia doesn't allow us to do so.
Mhm.
So we're enforcing a state code when we issue a building permit. Tennessee, I presume, not having lived or worked there, is different in that it sounds like they
Got home
allow,
rule.
yeah, the building code is adopted at the state level. I'm sorry, at the city level, and therefore they have the opportunity to make these kinds of changes.
Well, of course, we don't know that. I mean, I guess we can check as Tennessee and Dillon Rural State, but even if it is, I imagine that Memphis and Shelby County has the heft to get what they want. Get
So
allowed to what they do.
the legislature's not gonna change the code. They're gonna just instruct DHCD to form a board to study it, like they did with the single stair thing.
Right.
North Carolina passed a similar bill, and I understand they're still kind of talking about what to do. So I don't know that we need to legislate what exactly, how exactly you make the IRC apply. So much as say, we support studying, making the IRC apply.
I support studying parts of it. There are parts of it that I think are still important, but I think it's, there's some accessibility requirements. They're not full accessibility. It's like fair housing type requirements.
I mean, that's federal law. FHA is gonna apply after 4 units or 4 units.
It
now.
apply, FHA, I believe, is 6 units, but the building code calls for 4. Which is interesting. I didn't know there was this, I didn't realize that disconnect until recently.
I'm sorry, say that again? FHA,
I believe they start applying to everything 6 units or above. But our building code says that 4 units or above has to deal with type B units, which is basically FHA.
if we need to make one, some of this just needs to be uniform. If you can, in the financing world, 2 to 4 units is a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, regular residential loan with some overlays on it. This 3 units or less, and 4 units it's confusing the issue. To me, I mean, I think 5 and up needs to be something different than 1 to 4. If we're gonna make a distinction, not a 3. I think that's just sort of dumb. But not that we have any control over any of that, I'm just whining. So,
Right, so I think the big thing, it looks like it is definitely sprinklers, which it looks like you have to provide them if you've got 3 units or more. There are exceptions, but it's only if there's not enough water supply. I still feel like this one, we need to figure out exactly what we're trying to accomplish out of it. So I'm leery of the idea of just treating everything. I feel like the people who would most benefit from this would also be the people who would be most likely to get hurt from it if it went bad. As far as accessibility, fires.
so I think we need to examine what the issue, I think we need to drill down on this. Or somebody has to drill down.
Well, I think that's why we should just say the state should study it.
Very good, yeah. study, well, we recommend examining, adjusting the, yeah.
I'm good with that.
Examine it.
Exploring.
I guess what's interesting is you could adjust this, but then the residential code could eventually change to be more restrictive. You could pick up some things Carl.
Well, yeah, like technically the IRC says you have to have sprinklers, and every state just removes them, right? Or-
I don't remember if that was
Depending on
the
the
case.
occupied floors you have, trigger sprinkler.
But there are things that are built into the, like the residential code says anything, oh, shoot, I think it refers to 4 or more units, which 4 units aren't really covered in the residential code unless there's somebody already baked some things into the residential code that links back to the commercial code if you get more than so many units.
So we're really
It's
doing
still a
that,
complicated little mess.
we're doing that a wholesale adjustment on a lot of things, looking at each segment.
It almost seems like it'd be better to just go to the IBC.
Yeah.
Or the International Code Council.
It's that time of the 3-year cycle. Submissions are open. It looks like what Memphis did was establish this idea of large homes, which are a single structure with 3 to 6 attached dwelling units. And kind of
We
And-
really-
that in under 5,000 square feet and under 3 stories. It specifies firewalls, 3-hour fire resistance. If you have sprinklers, that's lowered to 1-hour fire resistance. etc.
And we're certain that
There are local amendments to the IRC. It's linked in that article that Lyle sent, except the link has a period at the end, but you have to delete the period.
Sorry.
And then, no, not your link, Opticus's link. When it links to the Memphis Division of Planning and Development. And then if you delete the period, then it has links to their codes.
I was not having a fun time with that city's website.
Well, I mean, to all of Carl's points. We need to relook at this thing the same way of this deed covenants. I mean, we've been making a whole series of assumptions that are baked in to do all these assumptions. Really, are they all still valid in the 3rd decade of the 21st century in the same way? Do we want to make adjustments at the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 unit level that makes sense to do that? Let's get organized and do it. All right, I mean, I guess that's what we're trying to tell the state.
Yeah.
I think we should just say. Tell the state to study it. DHCD can figure it out, or whatever committee they establish, like the single stair one that meets on September 9th.
Are we good on that one? Number 10, last one, we're doing great.
We got a couple more.
Oh,
Yeah.
pretty good.
Last one on this paper.
Yes, we recommend creation of a study committee to review issues of safe and efficient street designs as they may conflict with fire apparatus access. This is another trigger. Basically, we're talking about all the things that we're running into because we're training for something. See, you agree with this one? Okay. That's what we
Is
got.
this the language you could roll up to the one above it? You could say we would recommend the creation of a study committee to review issues around 6 units and below, whether or not they should. But that feels less triggering. I don't know, you just sort of.
Yeah, to adjust those thresholds, 3 units, 4 units, 6 units, yeah.
And they could adjust the threshold and they could go back and adjust the code too, so that they could get to a place that makes it,
Not crazy.
yeah, not like what Carl's saying, we're sorry is saying it accommodates 4 or more units, even though.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure we're missing anything in this statute.
Because the goal is to try to
Like
simplify height
Right.
development.
Right.
It's
But maybe
Christie, what's next?
You don't have like Chicago.
All right.
bus.
This is Rory's 2 items. He emailed us today at 1:39.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to send that a few days ago, but. Yeah, I don't know if I maybe just everyone, unless. So you guys, I emailed through planning commission and last time I tried to send to that, I got rejected,
So
so.
what do you want? What do you want?
Yeah.
First one is funding support for the Commonwealth Corridor train to Richmond and Hampton Roads.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's an easy one. There's currently an ongoing federally funded study for that.
Does it use the Buckingham branch? Is that the idea?
It does use the Buckingham branch, yeah, to Richmond. I figured that was an easy one. The second is, if there's any items that came out of the lawsuits against our comprehensive rezoning or Alexandria and Arlington's, that could be good to have fixed in state code, because no one's really done comprehensive rezonings for a long time. Certain laws have been passed that make it kind of weird if they apply, which is obviously being disputed in court, and I'm sure people are watching it sensitively, that's what I say. But one in particular, is this 15.2 dot
Two, 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 two.
2.2.2.1.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with 2.2 without a dot. Where if there's a substantial impact on state controlled roads, then you have to do a traffic impact analysis, assuming the highest possible use permitted, which for a specific rezoning makes sense, right? It's like, you're gonna build this development and you can say, this is this use and generates this many for this
Right.
square feet, use the IT table, we've all read the TIAs or skimmed over them in our rezonings, right? But to say, we're gonna rezone 800 parcels, and then you have to assume that each of them will become a convenience store that's 60,000 square feet. Because that's the highest trip generating use, ends up with a sort of nonsensical outcome. It's not so bad for us, because as a city, we're not a state, our roads are not state maintained. But if you were to try to do it in the county, for example, all of their roads are state maintained, you almost certainly have a substantial impact. Whereas for us, we deemed that we do not, it does not apply to us. Our position in court is that our deeming that it doesn't apply is the legal standard, and therefore it does not apply. But
Question is.
not, it doesn't apply to us, but it doesn't apply for our rezone.
Right, question, is this a little, considering that we have all of these moving targets in Northern Virginia and here in Charlottesville? Are we a little forward on our skis and asking for this now, or do we wanna get a few more things?
Wait till it gets overthrown. I don't think so, because it doesn't make sense. You know, even if we win on the basis of we said it doesn't apply to us and our roads aren't state maintained, so it only applies to roads in the county, and we're not gonna generate that many trips out there. It still doesn't make sense because the law is clearly written to apply to an individual rezoning. And so to clarify and say it only, this only applies if you.
Specific zoning requests, not by the local authorities, mass rezoning of, yeah.
Yeah, you
reconsideration.
could do it by a parcel limit, you could say who initiates it, or you could just say VDOT shall create regulations for. Comprehensive rezonings that are separate and don't require a TIA. Which is a specific thing. My hope was that we could tell Rob to draft us some language on how to fix this. And the planning commission would say, please ask the city attorney's office to. Ask if we have any changes we'd like to make to state law based on what we've learned from. Our expensive consultations with Sam Anderson.
Any chance you could wrap some words around that in like a couple sentences? Would you just say
That last part,
let the whole thing.
the part about asking the city attorney's office
No,
to
no,
tell
no,
us.
no, 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 no. What you like to see us do?
Well, I'd like to see us ask the city attorney's office what he wants to change, but for this specific thing, if we wanted to say something about 2.2.1. It'd say,
Why don't you mark
we-
it up?
huh?
Why don't you mark it up 2.2.1?
Well, that's. City attorney.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I don't wanna write state language, I will do it if I have to, but
I was just thinking what you wanted to red line out. and
Yeah.
I mean, so basically, you're trying to communicate clarity that this means a specific rezoning, which could have parameters,
Mhm.
like X number of parcels, X acreage, X whatever.
yeah,
Not a full locality comprehensive review.
You know,
Exactly.
the one thing about that is you're noting that it requires a traffic study. And then the traffic study has to use high speeds use. That last bit is not actually in the state code, that is.
in the VDOT regulation,
VDOT
because the,
regulations. Because the VDOT
True.
regulations, because VDOT doesn't anticipate any, anybody ever doing a comprehensive rezoning because that's more an concept to them.
At least in 2008 or whatever, six,
Right.
whenever this was passed.
Right, and
So the code instructs VDOT to make regulations, and those are the ones they made.
So actually, the real problem you're trying to solve is VDOT's regulations, not the state code.
That's true, interesting.
That's easier. Yes,
Wow.
What?
Maybe.
the law is already.
How about we request clarification in state law about how chapter 15, no, chapter 22, restrictions on rezonings apply to comprehensive rezonings, including 15.2.22.1.
Chapter 22 of what?
Title, how about title 15.2 of the Virginia Code?
I'm actually a little sensitive about bringing this up, you know,
There's that.
while this is the only issue that's at play in court, like,
Mhm.
our argument at the end of the day is that we followed this.
Yeah, but this, well, yeah, true.
And we followed exactly, and we did, we followed what's in the state code and off we go.
Yeah, well, the problem is, it's easy for us to follow it, it's hard for counties to follow it.
Absolutely, absolutely true.
It may be a timing issue.
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well, and-
Yeah, I think I think.
That's fair.
Then how the county.
Sure, we can punt this till next year.
Particularly since I mean, frankly, there may be an interest in, depending on how that case comes out, what the argument is.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting if there was a lesson learned that came after the cases saying, hey, this lack of clarity could create a chilling effect that other sort of areas may be reluctant to pass, like sort of revised zoning. And then with some clarity, maybe they won't have the same legal obstructions that Alexandria, Arlington, and Charlottesville went through. So
Sure.
I think waiting until you have an outcome is probably.
That's reasonable.
I would add, we could just sit down with VDOT and talk to them about it. They won't bite us.
I'm just fixing.
No, I mean, I mean, local office. Yeah, of course this doesn't apply.
Speak louder than the microphone.
Yeah.
So it's just adding some additional language, I guess, on their end, just some clarification.
I mean, the issue is,
It doesn't help Rory's concern that
no.
this still would hold VDOT.
So
So
there's two pathways.
maybe along the lines of what you just said, we can end the discussion and talk about it in a month or so after we get the ruling on the
Yeah.
case whose final briefs were filed on Friday.
And I mean, I don't know if this is going on, but I haven't heard any scuttle that there are too many other localities doing full rezonings right now, so it may not. You know, we
Well,
may be okay from the timing standpoint.
Yeah. like
There
still
are a
ongoing,
couple,
Yeah,
there are a couple out there who've reached out because we've just been through it and they're on the front end, but
And they may slow down once they see what we go through. They may pull the brakes.
they're not looking to do the same.
Yeah.
At least the example I'm thinking of. It's progressive, it's not as.
I have one more item that wasn't, we haven't talked about it, I don't have legislative ideas about this, but it's just something I'd like you to think about. As we start to build stuff in the city, we increasingly come into friction with Dominion. I don't know that we have legislative needs on that topic yet, but think about it.
Always.
Or,
Trees cut down.
and, 3 or 4 poles just sitting there. 75% of them just sticking into the air with nothing attached to them.
Ms. Christie, Mr. Freeze, you have what you need.
I think we can roll this out.
Do we have any other business?
That's what we had here. I mean, we talked earlier about, getting this into a nice document. better than our start and, you know, letting eyes take a look at that, make sure we captured it and then sending it onward to,
So you'll choose a copy, we'll take one quick look at this, and you'll send them to.
onto the legislative committee.
Related, family.
Mhm.
Everybody else happy? Good job. Thank you.
I'm definitely the second author.
I think we're wrapped.
Okay.
There you go, that's it.
Yeah,
That's it. All right.
Yeah, you heard it.
All right, thanks.
All right,
guys.
so